we're going to have to admit to ourselves that there's not really much that can be done to stave this off, and that we're going to have to face an unpleasant reality, and what seems like a hopeless reality, that we're not going to be let off the hook, and that no matter how innocent one of us could be, proof of guilt requires guilt, but proof of innocence is a luxury, often non-existent. And it could very well be just nothing you can do to prove your innocence when you're innocent. This is something that is going to cause even other women to make a decision to believe your accusers. One example is the example of Paloma. And that is what her husband's niece told us her name is. You know her as Isis, the trophy wife. The issue is that what women want to be, there are men willing to make them. What men would like to be, women refuse to make them and insist that the men make themselves. Who might like to be king, they will make sure that we don't get to be king with their help. They won't help with that. Now, a woman might be willing, maybe a queen or a concubine might be willing to involve herself in palace intrigue to help her son become king. But a woman is not willing to help another man become king. Maybe a nephew, a brother, or something like that, but to help a man become king that she's going to be sleeping with later on. No, she's not willing to do that. She has her mind made up. I don't do that. He has to become whatever I want in a man himself, by himself, without my help. There are women that will help the men, I know that. But for the vast majority of men, those women don't exist because they'll never find them. You have to do all of these things and become all of these things and acquire all of these things. And what's going to happen afterwards is that these same ladies are going to make their minds up that if you make them mad, or if they're just plain old embarrassed by you being seen with you, that what they are then going to do is say something to get you in trouble. Say something that's not true about you to get you in trouble for what you did not do. They will offer no apologies for it. You're just stuck. I say that, gentlemen, because Braxis Grant told me on underneath my live stream, he left a comment stating that he'd been lied on and he got jumped by 2 Crips because of a lie that this chick told. And I tell you guys as well that I know something about this because it almost happened to me. Now, the girl that lied on me did not lie to any Crips because on the Gulf Coast, we only heard about Crips and Bloods. We didn't know them in person. We didn't see them. But the other thing, too, was that she felt perfectly comfortable telling a guy from the projects, my buddy actually, that as early as 7th grade, that I told her to dump him and break up with him because he just wanted one thing. She sat on the bus on a Monday morning and told some of the ladies, I think I'm going to break up with Anthony. Now, this girl that said this, we're going to call her Mouth grew up across the street from me. Our parents are friends. You would have thought we were childhood friends, but that wasn't possible because of what she was willing to do, the lies she was willing to tell. She was willing to sit up and say that I did and said what I did not do or say. She was fine with that. She sat up and she told a buddy of mine that I said what I didn't say so as to cause what I didn't cause so that he would hurt me. Now, he was from the projects. He had extensive fighting experience by 7th grade. I'm not from the projects. I was better at boxing than just street fighting. And I wasn't an expert in boxing either. What do you do in a situation like this? Well, it worked out for the better because when she lied to him and he came and at first he confronted me and told me he was going to kick my ass later, I just calmly said, bruh, I didn't say that. I actually know a guy that did, but he doesn't know you, and he knows that she knows that y'all don't know each other. He was just joking. Wasn't about you. I promise he was just joking. Don't worry about that. But she knew that he said that and that I was just there. And he took off on his bike before I could say anything anyway. I told my man's Anthony, no, it's not his real name, by the way. It's his middle name, but it's not his first or his last. That man could rap his ass off too. But I told him, no, I ain't say that. I didn't have that conversation with her. And she knows it wasn't me. She knows that the guy that said this was joking, but she knows who he is. She knows the difference between him and me. Somebody you don't know told a joke. She went to you and said that I said it seriously. Why do you think she did that? Man, I don't believe that, bro. I'm gonna beat your ass, bro. It wasn't me. Now, he did, to his credit. Later on, when I saw him in the class that we took together, he came to me and he said, you know, man, I believe you, bro. And I said, I'm glad because you never did anything to give me that idea. Now, fast forward, same school year, twice on the same bus in which he sat and told some girl she was going to dump him. And she did it before I could tell him when we got to the school. She sat up, started arguments with me, and then told me she was going to get someone to kick my ass because I make her mad. What? Okay. She was comfortable in casually saying this to who was supposed to be her childhood friend. I was not trained to think of this as a sister phenomena. I was trained to think of this as a Wyatt woman phenomenon because most of us were. That's why I tell you all this story. I was fortunate. Anthony realized she lied. But what I didn't realize at the time is how unevenly some of us are magnets and targets for these false accusations. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us don't want to sit up and say this when we've come across it. But then you find a Black manosphere and you realize it's actually okay to say this because you should tell some folks that this is what's going on so that young brothers can come along and see, oh, wait, this is what they were dealing with. So I'm not the only one. So it ain't just me. So it's not something I'm doing. So it ain't my fault. It wasn't my fault. She went and I racked my brain trying to figure out how the hell did she even think to single me out to lie like that? What is it about me that would bring this on me? I remember thinking that because that's how I was trained to think, not by my own parents, but by the nigocracy. So yeah, gentlemen, it's bad, but that's what it was. And you're facing this. So some of you have seen that while many of us and any of us, if we make a chick mad enough, could face false accusations, Some of you don't realize that you have an extra target on your back because there's another motive. And what is this motive? Of course, if you make a chick mad, that can happen. We know that. What happens if you don't make her mad, but she's embarrassed? It's not that you did something to embarrass her, because then she would be mad at you, but she's embarrassed about you by the hive mind. Now you are in extra trouble because, hey, look, gentlemen, let's call it what it is. You're in trouble because, frankly, sir, why not? She still wants to do something to you to harm you, to assuage the embarrassment, and a false accusation can do that. Right now, there's a weapon. And that weapon that we have is that sisters do have the shame. So it's the same shame that can motivate them to falsely accuse a guy to get his ass kicked or thrown behind bars or anything of that nature, or just get sympathy to get money, which is common. That same shame is a shame that you can utilize to get them to say to another woman that she did that. Because you see, they don't want other girls saying, you like that dude, you into that dude. If they say that, then she could say, well, I'm the one that got him in trouble for X, Y, and Z. Oh. So she'll use that and assuage, in order to assuage the shame. She then has to turn and tell someone else, and that might be the only weapon that you got. A lady that's willing to trick her into a confession. You see, Paloma is going to have points, social points. She's going to get somewhere from some women for what she's doing. She's trying to get someone's approval. The question is whose? But once she's in that context, she'll say to them, I did this. To set them up, to incentivize them to confess is too much. You're not going to be able to do this. So I want you gentlemen to understand you can't pull that off, and that's not your fault. Prevention, as I stated when I was talking in my second to last upload while I was in the US, prevention is better than cure, and sometimes the only cure. You will have to prevent this as best you possibly can. I had to change majors at Morehouse to prevent this. I stopped going to Spelman's campus for years to prevent this. 2.5 years I didn't go. Halfway through my sophomore year was the last time I went to visit some Spelman sisters of mine, because back then they assigned them a Morehouse brother and you a Spelman sister, or more than one. So I want you guys to know that there were quite a few guys that they just stopped going. I don't know who these guys are. Some were just too busy. But I was one that quit going. Not only was I busy, but I was sure to not go because I knew that they would become very nervous. Just my appearance would cause that. Now, apparently there was an actual mistaken identity. Some guy that apparently looked like me did something to Bill Cosby's daughter. It wasn't a struggle snuggle. It wasn't that, but he was apparently one of a group of guys that threw some things at her, called us some names, but somehow, because he had a distinct appearance amongst many of us, he stood out. He was described because he stood out, and apparently some thought it was me, but it wasn't. I was on Spelman's campus the day that happened, But this happened during the daytime. I was not on Spelman's campus until after sunset. I was very worried that whoever this guy was, he was going to do worse, and I was going to be blamed and go down for it, and it wasn't me. I was there. I was a student at the time that those basketball players got accused. And as a matter of fact, I had met the accuser. She was a family friend of a family friend. It's a long story, but I'd met her. I met her dad when her dad flew in town because of the accusations, which later turned out to be false. I saw her years later in an elevator in downtown Atlanta in one of the hotels. I think she was there for an event. I forgot why I was there, but I saw her and I was afraid because at this point I knew she had lied, and I hoped to God she did not remember me. And I don't think she did. But I hoped that she did not remember me. I remember that I was on the elevator, she got on, and I was very afraid. By the time she got off the elevator, I'd begun to sweat under my clothes, but not visibly. Because I didn't know what she would do or what she would say or why. I was trained a certain way, not so much by my parents, but when the accusations came out, I didn't know what to think. And then I later found out that she was the accuser, and um, I believed it. I believed what she said about them in the beginning. And that's because I was trusting someone that I knew. But she was a freshman. She just newly arrived, and I didn't really know her. I knew her family friends, my family friends. And next thing I know, people were talking, and then the next thing I know, she got caught in some other guy's dorm room hiding in his closet. And the next thing I know, she had to go ahead and admit that the charges were false. I saw her years later. She was free as a bird. She was laughing and giggling with another lady on the elevator. I was sitting there afraid. By this point, I had learned to be afraid of women in general. Many of you have been through this, and you don't know that you've learned to be afraid of them, because one of the things that happens when we are raised, especially if we're raised by a hyena, is that we're taught to not deny guilt. We're taught that we should accept responsibility. But that means that when you're blamed for something you didn't do, the adult and mature thing to do is to go ahead and say that you did it. But what if you didn't? What if it wasn't you? Well, don't say it wasn't you. Be a man. Say that it was. Put yourself in that bad position, because why should anybody believe you innocent anyway? Go on ahead and say it was you. N word. What are you doing trying to get off the hook? You see? So I want you guys to stop and assess what it is that you've learned and how it's affected you. I want you to ask yourselves, have you ever felt an urge to say you did something you didn't do because of training? Ask that of yourselves. So if you have, then that means that the conditioning probably started at a very young age for you. Have you ever even been thought guilty of something you didn't do, and while you didn't have the urge to say that you did it and confess, have you ever just felt incapable of stating that you didn't do it? Wasn't you? Have you ever thought, well, you know what? I look guilty. I mean, hell, I look guilty even to myself in the mirror. So I don't, even if I didn't do it and I say it, I don't expect them to believe me. I don't see how they could believe it, even though I didn't do it. My innocence is not enough. I still look guilty. There's the issue of me looking guilty. I haven't learned how to stop doing that yet. Have these thoughts ever run through your head? As I can tell you, they ran through mine. And if I hadn't been the type of person to question how we were taught, and that was largely due to me taking advertising classes and some public relations work that I got experience in before I even finished high school. If it had not been for these discussions, I would not have questioned how it is that we're trained and conditioned. Had I not done so, I think I would have been subject to the same things for much longer. And even still, there have been times after college when some sisters have said that I looked like I would do X, Y, and Z. And I actually believed that they thought that when they said it. And there have been times when I've thought that they probably aren't lying. They really believe that I look like I would do these things, even though I wouldn't. And these were sisters that taught this to me. I don't know what they taught to you, but I know that it was something, and I wonder what are the psychological effects on many of you brothers, because in all honesty, you guys are miraculous. You face false accusations like this repeatedly, and you don't flip the uckfout and commit mass murder. You don't even put hands on a bunch of people at one time, let alone take more violent weapons and go after a mass of people. You don't do these things. You are very, very gracious. I don't think that people understand how much they don't deserve to have you around. And now that winter is here, quite a few people are going to find out what the hell that means. One of the main reasons is going to be that you've been blamed for stuff you didn't do, categorically and individually. And I can honestly say that I'm glad that you are putting yourselves in positions to not face that anymore before you finally snap and go crazy. Because it would take so long, apparently, it would take so long and take so much of it before you did snap and go insane. man, you really are an asset that many nations and many other demographics don't deserve. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps. And I hope you share with each other what it is that this has done and what it's taught you, what the effects are. Well, you're going to have some effects. You're human, but I hope you share with each other what these effects are. Thank you for listening. As always, Black Heart, Black Mind, Black Out, Assalamu Alaikum, and Black Heterosexual Non-Select Male Power because they don't like it. Black Patriarchy until extinction or Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase Jet Black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.